Hi there, and welcome to my latest edition of my 10-minute moan. Now, in this episode, I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about Humza Yousaf's complete disingenuous comments he regularly makes about asylum seekers and what he's going to do with them. And I also like to look at the total hypocrisy shown by the vast majority, all bar one, of councils in Scotland until very recently and how they dealt with asylum seekers. Now, just to give you a wee bit of background, this is in a previous life about 10 years ago, I got involved with a campaign where I stood up and put out publicly some really damning information I had about certain people. And what happened, a lot of people who were involved with that thing at the time, they saw me as a person who had a platform, a voice, and would put the truth out in social media. This was before I had a YouTube channel. I wish I had back then. And as soon as I started putting out information and people saw what I was doing, people who maybe weren't in a position to do such things started coming to me with information. And I was quite happy when I could substantiate it to put that information out in the public. That was about 10 years ago, last time I had any sort of reason to do anything like I'm doing now with the state of the Scottish Government. And this information today comes after a similar thing where I see it happening again. History's repeating itself. So I've stood up and said, I'm not happy with this, I'm not happy with that. Getting quite a decent number of people watching and a platform to put my opinions out, which are shared by many. And now people are starting to come to me with information. What I would say to you is, if you are in that category of people where you have something that you wish to be made public, then contact me. Contact me either through here by putting something in the messages or craighoustontalks2@gmail.com. And I welcome any advice, any information, as long as it's truthful. We can stand it up. I have no problem being a platform for these people with information. So today, I spent a bit of time this morning talking to a person who has a very, very close connection with UK-wide situation with dealing with asylum seekers, and on quite a decent level at that. And I thought I knew a few things about asylum seekers and how the whole thing works, and totally inept in my understanding of the subject in many ways. And this person who works closely with asylum seekers on a daily basis, trying to help them and provide comfort and a roof over their head, is totally pissed off, probably the best way to describe it, about a couple of things. And the first thing is the disingenuous way that Humza Yousaf deals with and talks about continuously asylum seekers, painting this picture of holier than thou. And this person was a bit upset. I've recently seen evidence that he was suggesting that Scotland would be welcoming Palestinian refugees from the Gaza Strip. And he pointed out that it's nothing to do. He cannot make these sort of claims. The simple reason, immigration is not a devolved power, it's a reserved power. Now, we all know about the reserved and devolved powers that we have in Scotland, because education, transport, all these things are devolved and can be dealt with by the Scottish Government. However, immigration, foreign policy, these sort of things are not covered and dealt with by the Scottish Government. They are reserved matters and can only be dealt with in Westminster. So Humza has got no right to be saying and making these claims. However, especially with elections coming up soon, both in Westminster probably the next 6 to 9 months, and in Holyrood over the next 18 to 24 months, all he's doing is showboating and crowd surfing. That's what he's doing, looking for tick a box, nice cuddly Humza, and thinking that these sort of claims are going to influence how people vote. I've got news for you. The polls are showing a dwindling support for you and your party, Humza. So that means people are not listening anymore. Nicola Sturgeon could get away with it. She made a career out of it. And although I don't like her, I don't respect her, I don't trust her, I don't believe her, she was actually a better politician than you. So when you get up and you start showboating and fan dancing and making all these ridiculous claims, you're fooling nobody. And you're now people who actually deal with asylum seekers at a very high level, I may add, are going, you're a crackpot. So do yourself a favour and shut up. The other thing that this person was a bit perturbed by was what they seen as a very distinct way of dealing with asylum seekers by Scottish councils, and went as far as to claim that although it would be easily just told no, that didn't happen, quite believes that the direction that Scottish councils took with asylum seekers was after direct involvement by the SNP Scottish Government. So let me explain to you how the asylum system works in a wee bit more detail than I knew before today's extended telephone conversation. And then I'll explain to you what happened in Scotland. So there's a few different ways that, up until recently, asylum seekers were dealt with. From time to time, there would be certain schemes. Let's take one that I was using the example in today's telephone call. The Syrian refugee programme, these were funded by the Home Office stroke Westminster. So what the Home Office stroke Westminster would do, they put a special programme in place when there was issues in Syria and there was a lot of people fleeing to seek asylum for their safety for them and their families. So when these people came into the country, they were dealt with under a different scheme, stroke programme, however you want to term it. And this was totally funded by Westminster, stroke Home Office. So what would happen if they found a place in Glasgow or Edinburgh or Borders or Aberdeen, wherever it would be, they would go to the councils and they would basically pay the council for these people to be housed. And the councils could use that money any which way they wanted. And guess what? All the councils in Scotland had a go at that. We'll take the money, because they could take the money and build a swim park for all they wanted. They could take the money and employ people to look after these people. But it put money into their coffers from Westminster to look after these asylum seekers. So there was various programmes like that. There was another one he discussed, which was for children. Amazing conversation. This blew my mind, and the different reasons how children would end up near shores without any adults, and what happened with them. And that was a similar programme, which fully government funded by the Home Office at Westminster, and all the Scottish councils were quite happy to deal with that. Then we came across one which was probably quite a number of people and quite a large portion of the asylum seekers into the UK, and what's called the dispersal scheme. Now, the way this was described to me is, if you're an asylum seeker and you might go into a temporary, like a barge or a hotel, the British government are actually legally obliged to put a roof over your head. And doing these hotels, very, very expensive. But once that had been done and you maybe started going through the asylum process, the idea was to put you in less temporary accommodation, maybe no, a 4-bedroom detached house, but, into more, probably better housing for the asylum seeker, and better value for money than hotels for the funding. Now, the dispersion scheme was dealt with very, very differently. The dispersion scheme paid the contractors who were looking after the asylum seekers directly. So if you were an asylum seeker, there was space in Livingston, for example. and you were housed there, the money to look after you would not go to the council. It would go to the company who looked after you and made sure you had a roof, you had furniture, etc., etc., etc. Now, this person was quite keen to tell me that, again, differences company to company, but I think Mears was a company that looked after Scotland, if not the majority of Scotland. And they were saying that a lot of companies was maybe slightly different levels of how they provided their service. But what he did say was Mears were one of the better, if not the best, at looking after these people and done a good job. So up until recently, these people, big chunk of them on the dispersal scheme, these people in the Home Office, etc., would find them somewhere to stay, and then these companies would get paid to look after them and make sure everything went fine, provide services for them. Now, when that happened, the councils got none of that funding. And now all the councils in Scotland, which I don't know the number, should maybe have done that before the video. I'll maybe find it while I'm editing and stick it on the screen. But out of this number of councils, which will be quite a big number, in the whole of Scotland, only one took asylum seekers when there was no money coming their way. One. And it didn't surprise me to find out that that was Glasgow. So, if you can think back, people in Glasgow had been aware that there was a lot of asylum seekers coming into the community for a long time, but it's only recently that our neighbours in other areas of Scotland have seen issues, and one close to my own doorstep, which was quite a big one recently, was when the hotel in Erskine got a lot of asylum seekers, and these would have been through this dispersal scheme. And what happened in March 2021, less than 2 years ago, the Home Office decided that they would control where people went. The decision was made that why would it actually matter where they're putting them, what council they're putting these people in? If the council had no dealings with them, they weren't dealing with the Mears groups, etc., they weren't dealing with the funding. So although the Scottish councils, bar one, weren't taking these people in up until March 21, because there was no funds in it for them, after March 21, the Home Office decided, we'll decide where we're putting these people. And if we find a hotel, a barge, some sort of way that we can have our dispersed asylum seekers, then we will do it. And suddenly, people started popping up in the Erskine Bridge Hotel, etc., etc., etc. And people wonder, that's right. Before then, it was just a Glasgow problem. So let's not be fooled here, folks, by these hand-wringers, tree-hugging, virtue signalling, liars, thieves and vagabonds within our governing party who would have you believe Scotland's got an open door policy. Scotland has only up until March 21 had one when the funding was given by the Home Office. And it's only recently they're now taking in asylum seekers where they don't get funding because the rules changed and they have no say. But up until March 2021, don't let them kid you, Scottish councils, vast majority of them, SNP ran, refused to take in dispersal scheme asylum seekers because there was no dough in it for them. No dough, no happening. But they'll be in front of the telly anytime there's an asylum seeker, refugee issue, and try to show that there were all these world-wide family. It's all bollocks. It's just showboating and bollocks. And this person is quite convinced, and he couldn't get into too much detail, and I have to respect that because obviously if they gave me too many details that I then put them out, I could inadvertently blow their cover. So, then, and it said quite clearly that even what he did tell me could, if it ever became public, the SNP would quite easily just, renege, say that didn't happen. But what he's quite positive, and this is a person that has been dealing with this, the coal face at quite a high level, convinced that the Scottish councils did not partake in the scheme because they were being driven that way by the Scottish National Party at Holyrood. These people that just talk nonsense about asylum seekers, talk nonsense about asylum seekers and refugees and stuff, and want to portray this loving, kind, holier than thou attitude and question the integrity of anybody who opens their mouth about, like me, asks questions about asylum seekers and refugees, etc., flooding their country. We're the bad people. And you have for years been going front and centre, talking absolute shite about how loving and caring you are, where for years you've done nothing unless there was money in it for you. You are despicable. And I cannot wait till the Scottish people, to a man, figure you out and horse you right out of Holyrood, because that's all you deserve. So there we are. Thanks very much for tuning in. A wee bit longer than normal this one. Thumbs up if you like it, subscribe and notifications if you want to see more videos. There'll be some recommendations in the corner. But most important of all, have a great day. Bye now.